Hey everyone, my name is Lumi and I like to draw and animate things for rigging in Live2D. These tutorials are going to be a little bit of a walkthrough on the process of how I like to rig my VTuber models using Live2D Cubism and honestly any digital software for drawing. Before we hop into it though, I'd like to take a brief moment to introduce myself. I've been drawing ever since I could hold a crayon, and honestly, I haven't stopped since. I personally prefer drawing with pen and paper, and of course Copic markers or watercolors, but I've been using digital tablets for a long time now. I find that different tools are just different ways to bring characters to life, and Live2D is no exception. I've been making models in Live2D for a little over a year now, and there's just so much joy to be found in seeing them come to life and making all kinds of animations. I still have much to learn and explore, but hopefully these walkthroughs and tutorials will be helpful to other people, just as all the other YouTube tutorials have been helpful to me on my journey. Alright, so before I import my new model into Live2D and get started on setting it up for rigging, I'm going to go over some of the tools that are needed. You're going to need to make sure that your drawing is split into layers and saved in a PSD file format. This way, when you import it into Live2D, all your parts are separated and it's just so much easier to organize. There's many drawing programs out there that save in this format, such as Photoshop, of course, but there's also Paint Tool SCI, Clip Studio Paint, Krita, GIMP. I like making my drawings using a drawing tablet. For many years, I've been using the Wacom Intuos tablet, but I've also recently upgraded to an inexpensive pen display tablet. I find being able to use a pen to make my drawings is much more comfortable, but I do have a lot of friends who prefer mouse and keyboard. And lastly, the most important program for making your VTuber model is Live2D Cubism itself. Live2D is available for free on their website. They also have an option for a premium subscription. You can try it out in the free trial, or you can skip that altogether. You don't need to pay to make your models. Also, one last thing, when drawing and getting your model ready for animating and rigging, make sure that it's cut up into all kinds of little parts. How many parts and how many sections you want is up to you. It all really depends on what you plan to animate and what you want to get moving. Another important thing to remember when splitting your model up and getting all the parts ready is try and name everything. That way you won't get lost when it's time to start animating and rigging. Once your new model is drawn, organized, and ready to go, it's time to import it into Live2D and get ready for rigging. Alright, first things first, let's import our model into Live2D Cubism. What we're going to do is we're going to click File and Open and look for our PSD file. Once your file has been imported into Live2D, you'll be able to see all the parts, folders, and layers exactly as you would in your drawing program under the Part menu. And then you'll also see all of the parts separated again into another window called Deformer. The Deformer window is where we're going to be doing all of our animating and moving around, but we'll discuss that in a future video. One of the first things I like doing when I'm working on a new model is organizing the parts into different sections. So for this, I'm going to be using warp deformers to sort of act as folders, but also I'll be using them to help animate my model again later. First things first, we're going to select all of our parts in the deformer menu, every single one of them, and we're going to click on this button here for creating a new warp deformer. I'm going to call it Entire Body, and we're just going to pop everything in there. Once that's been done, we're going to go back again into the deformer window and we will select everything that is on the head. So the hair, the face, the head itself, all of the head, we're going to select it. And I'm just going to pop that into another warp deformer called Head. I'm also going to scroll all the way down and get the back hair parts because those are a bottom layer and I don't want to forget those. I can then go back in and start selecting different things like all of the mouth parts, put those into a mouth deformer for when I start rigging the mouth. I'm going to select the eyes and put those into their own deformer as well. I'm just going to continue this with all the other body parts as well, such as with the neck. I'm also going to do it for the top of the body, the shirt, maybe the dress separately, arms and legs of course as well. Also, very important, before we forget, don't forget to save your file. Save it somewhere. Press Ctrl S often. Do not lose your file. Saving is very important. I've lost hours of data from crashes or just not saving because I forget. So please, please, please save your file. One last thing I like doing before I start working on models is I go into the parameter window over here and I like organizing the parameters. I find that as I add parameters, add physics, and start working with the model, it gets really messy really fast. So it helps if I create folders and kind of like structure things within the folders. So the first folder here is going to be for the inputs, and that's what the camera tracks for like the head and the body. I'll also be making folders for the other parameters such as the eyes, the eyebrows, the mouth, and anything else I add on. All of these parameters are the default ones that Live2D loads in for you for motion tracking. I don't always use all of them, but I do use quite a few and add on to them, so it's really helpful if I organize it all. Once all of my parameters are organized into little folders, I like to add a few colors just to tell them apart at a glance. This is totally optional, but I think it looks fun. Oh, another tiny detail before we get to rigging. Live2D doesn't handle clipping and masking the same way as like Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint does. So once everything is organized, I like to run in and make sure that all of my layers are masked and clipped appropriately, like, where they're supposed to be. This usually means things like shadows on the neck or little eye parts, stuff that you don't want sticking out. Let's take the eyeball shadow, for example. Over here, you can see it sticking out, but I want it to be clipped to the actual white of the eye itself. First, I'm going to go look for the eye white layer, and I'm going to select the ID for it. And then when I go into the eyeshadow layer, there should be a clipping ID box over here in the inspector window. And I paste the art mesh ID of the eye white in there, and it will automatically clip and it's no longer overflowing. I'll repeat this for all the other shadows and things I need to have clipped, such as like the neck shadow and maybe some of like the drop shadows for the hair. This is also something I try and get out of the way right away so that I don't forget or have to like stop everything I'm doing to do that later. Once all of these things are done, my model is imported, organized, and saved, and now we're ready to start animating her. In the next video, I'm going to go over rigging the eyes. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys again in the next video. Bye bye!